Achievement awardee tonight, Dr. Hatem Bazian. So, are you ready to know how much we raised tonight? Are you curious? Because I told you I did not. I told you, what did I tell you earlier? I told you 12 hours, $100,000 an hour. That was my price for being here. So $100,000 an hour for 12 hours, that's $1.2 million. So you all gave me a tip. They gave us a tip, Imam Siraj, for you and me. We're hoping to get there. We didn't get to the 1.2 exactly, but we're almost there. We are at 1.135. So $1,135,000. So that means that we are $65,000 away from my $1.2 million. And I only have about 45 minutes left in this space. So hopefully somebody in this room keeps pushing those envelopes and bringing them to the front so we could make the $65,000 so we could get to the $1.2 million. One of the greatest accomplishments that we have had as a community is here with us this evening. But before I talk about one of the greatest accomplishments we've ever had as a community, I want to say something about her friend. Because in order to honor the biggest accomplishment of our community, we got to send some friends to hang out and support our biggest accomplishment in Congress. So I want to give a shout out to our dear brother Donovan McKinney, who's here from the great state of Michigan. And just to be clear, CAIR-San Francisco Bay Area does not endorse candidates, but I do. And Donovan McKinney is about to take out politically Shri Thanadar, who is probably the most terrible member of Congress if I ever saw one. And Donovan McKinney, inshallah, in 2026, with the support of you in this room and many others across this country, is going to Congress. And we are honored to support you, Brother Donovan McKinney. But back to the greatest accomplishment, one of the greatest accomplishments of our community is that we sent one of the fiercest members of Congress to not only fight for our community, but to fight for all communities. And subhanAllah, the fiercest and the boldest and the bravest voice in Congress right now is a Palestinian American Muslim woman from the great state of Michigan. They tell her to sit down and she stands up. They tell her to be quiet and she speaks even louder. And she has ensured that Palestine and that Gaza are on the House floor, that the members of Congress who vote for the bombs that bomb our people look her in the eye every single day. And she has not backed down, not a single day, through the death threats, through the harassment, through the defamation. This is a woman whose back is straighter than anyone's back that I've ever met in my entire life. And she is here with us this evening. Please, sisters and brothers, give it up to our beloved Palestinian American sister, our Congresswoman, your Congresswoman, Rashida Talib.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I told Linda I'm so jealous of her because I don't know if you all heard, but she became a grandmother. She's a sitto now. And I keep telling my son, Yallah, I'm going to be like the best grandmother. You have no idea. I know. But he's like, Mama, I'm only 20 years old. I said, hey, I don't know. We marry young. But thank you all so much. You know, many of you may have heard my story, and I always like to start with my roots and ground us a little bit before I get into, I think, the importance of why we need to build up institutions like this one. Mashallah, everyone always says, oh, Sister Rashida's a lawyer. I don't know, different things I've heard out there, and I'm like, no. I'm actually, the thing that best prepared me for public office is being the eldest of 14, mashallah. I have 7 younger brothers, 6 younger sisters. And we are a voting bloc in Detroit area. But both my parents, you know, my dad came with only 4th grade education. My mother only 8th grade education. And I always remind people that my yamma came in the airplane from Palestine pregnant with me, 3 months pregnant with me. So technically I was made in Palestine. But one of the things that also grounds me is being not only the daughter of Palestinian immigrant parents, which I'm so incredibly proud of, but I was a girl that grew up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit. And this is a city that has birthed movements. Okay, when you think of Detroit, people think of the labor movement, they think of so many things, but every corner, every mural that goes up is a reminder of me, this girl growing up, watching our government continue to oppress, continue to painfully apply policies that hurt people. It is always the movement from the outside that is what's going to liberate us. You know, I grew up in the Southwest Detroit neighborhood where you saw 20 different ethnicities, mashallah. And I always tell people it made me a better Muslimah. It truly did. It also made me a better public servant. Detroit is where every neighborhood has history rooted in movement that grew from the streets, not City Hall, not the state capitol, movements that grew from the ground up, not the legislative branches full of sellouts or corporate boardrooms. It's a city that, if there's any city that can take down fascism, it's the city that raised me, the city of Detroit. And you know, you hear the phrase Detroit versus everybody. Everybody here has seen that phrase, Detroit versus everybody? It's not just a cool phrase. We actually mean it. And we can show you why we say it and why, again, the movement from the outside in is what, again, gets us transformative change. You know, a lot of people think when I first got into the state house and I was the first Muslim elected in the Michigan legislature, and then I got elected to Congress later, everyone thought at that moment that the majority of my district was Muslim. It wasn't. It was a majority black city that elected a Palestiniya, elected a Muslimah. That's what it did. You know, think about that for one moment. It's neighbors that did not share my faith or ethnicity that made history. And you know, Detroit taught me that institutions like Congress, and I say this to you all because I know the pain that you must feel watching, and the brother talked about it right now, watching, again, our government fully just turn their backs on us and the pain that we were going through watching a genocide live. But institutions like Congress were not built for someone like myself or Congresswoman Latifah Simon or, inshallah, future Congressman Donovan McKinney. These are not folks that, again, Congress wasn't built for us. You know, community mothers like Lila Cabell, who was with Mother Rosa Parks, Grace Lee Boggs, understood that transformative change in our country came from all of us. If you think about the civil rights movement, the labor rights movement, again, it didn't come because somebody in Congress woke up one day and said, man, Civil Rights Act, that's a really good idea. They didn't wake up thinking that. It's when people from the outside made them move on that issue. It's because people withheld their labor, they boycotted, they marched. The movement pushing from the outside in is what leads to transformative change. It didn't, again, happen putting our heads down and trying to be invisible. I always remind people the story of translating for my mother because it's important. You know, when I was little and I used to translate for my mom, she used to get so mad if I talked back or because somebody would say something rude to her or look at her funny. And I still remember how mad I used to get at my yamma because I was like, why won't she fight? You know, I'm telling sisters and brothers, you know what I'm talking about. When something's happening to your parents, you're like, come on, why aren't they fighting? Why are you mad at me? You're pinching me. You know, she goes, why are you the one in the family that causes trouble? Binash mashakil. I mean, if you're Palestinian, you heard that. I know Linda heard it. Binash mashakil, we don't want trouble. It didn't click to me until I was in Palestine with my sitti, Allah yarhamha, and my mother, and we were going through a checkpoint. How they shrunk, how their heads were down, almost stopped breathing. They were conditioned that if, again, they were invisible, they didn't breathe, they didn't look at them in the eye, they would live. So my mother comes here with her 8th grade education, me in her womb, and she just was taught, be invisible, do not say anything. Shh, you will live. Binash mashakil. I really think that many of us thought if we just educate our children, we'll come to the United States, we'll educate our children, we'll make money, we'll build institutions, we'll do all these wonderful things, then they'll stop killing us. They'll stop. It didn't work that way, did it? And that's where it comes in. Again, growing up in Detroit, you hear the stories of, well, if they're not going to provide health care, we're going to provide the health care. If they're not going to be able to fight for us in court, we're going to make sure we have folks in our community who can litigate and push back and desegregate schools and do the things that is needed so that people are not fully, oppressed. Again, the policies itself actually kill. You don't have to put bombs on people or shoot them. The policy in itself, the doing nothing or ignoring it kills people equally. I know it's terrifying right now. I hear it sometimes in your voices. Many of you come up, you're tearful, you're angry, you're upset, you're in pain. It's hard to exist right now. I don't know about you, but I watched my son graduate from high school, and I couldn't stop crying, not because it's him, because I kept thinking of Gaza and the fact that many Palestinian parents could not see their children graduate because there was no schools. It's hard to exist right now. And it's hard to have people understand or describe it to them. And people in this room know what I'm talking about. But we can't keep our head down and hope that we're going to be okay. We tried that approach, it didn't work. We tried doing, okay, let's do interfaith work. Let's show people that we're like regular folks. I've heard people say, God, just maybe we just break bread together. It's beautiful, and it's just not enough, though. It just wasn't enough. I know this, more than ever, we need to be more engaged, and we need to be visible and almost completely unapologetic. Like raising 1.5 for CAIR San Francisco should be nothing, and everyone around here should know that this community can raise that kind of money because we understand that litigation is resistance and that we're going to not back down. I don't care if it's a school board, a school district. I don't care if it's an employer or whatever it is. They need to be ready, that we have an army ready to fight to make sure that our existence is not erased and that our voices are not silenced. I know it's painful to see that our political establishments have failed us. But Detroit taught me that a long time ago. I know firsthand, watching my colleagues, brothers and sisters, watching my colleagues vote over and over again to send more bombs and weapons while our neighborhoods still don't have clean drinking water. I'm seeing poverty increase in my city, not decrease, while billionaires become richer. I'm watching us in the richest country in the world. Literally, families going bankrupt because somebody in their family had cancer and they couldn't afford the treatment. I've watched in horror for years, both Democrats and Republicans, and I'm tired of people in this room making excuses for either. I've watched them overwhelmingly ignore the working class to carry out wars and now a genocide of the Palestinian people. The Congress would rather send bombs and money to a rogue, violent apartheid state than fund free health care here in our country. Think about that. What many of my colleagues don't want to acknowledge that all across the country, though, people who do not share our faith, nor do they share my ethnicity, are demanding an end to the funding of the genocide, to war crimes, and to forced starvation. They don't know what to do, ya Jama'ah. They send me text messages and videos of people interrupting their town halls as if I'm somehow related to everybody fighting against the genocide. I said, I don't know. They're not related to me. They look like your constituents. Maybe you should meet with them. That's what I say to them. Because, ya Jama'ah, One thing that you should know is that we are winning because this is an American issue. This is not a Muslim issue. This is not a Palestine issue. This is not a Jewish issue. This has now become a real American issue. At town halls, they ask about immigration, they ask about SNAP benefits, they ask about poverty, they ask about environment, and they ask about why are you funding the genocide? When are you going to stop? MashaAllah, I never thought in my lifetime I would see people now finally know that I'm Palestinian and know exactly what that means. Because when I went door to door, I would say I'm Palestinian because who are you from? Where are you from? From. And I'm like, I'm Palestinian. They're like, oh, my doctor's from Pakistan. I don't correct them. I kept going. But mashallah, at this point, if there's anything that would liberate us, is the fact that we now have neighbors, again, that do not share our faith, who are speaking truth to power when it comes to the genocide. And that is something you all should be incredibly proud of, that there are Americans, again, they might not be members of Congress, but they're our neighbors, and they're speaking up, and we should elevate it. You know, many of my colleagues won't poll their constituents on whether or not they should fund the genocide. A lot of them will ask me, what do you think I should do? I said, poll your district. You poll them on immigration, you poll them on environment, you poll them on economy. Poll them on this issue. I dare you. Because they won't poll because there's too many warmongers in Congress. Many of them drool over defense contracts and own stocks in war manufacturing companies. There has been stories out there saying that many of the war manufacturing companies were like, man, we didn't make that much money in Ukraine, but we're making a lot more money in Palestine. What's so sick about it is that every single time I watch my colleagues press that yes button for the imploded nearly $1 trillion defense budget, I know that they personally own stocks and literally profit off of death. I watch. No hesitation. There's a little button. They put the card in, they press the button. Their stock portfolio makes money and their campaign checks from pro-genocide groups grow. You know, every Palestinian who was killed with U.S. weapons is because members of Congress, also including President Biden and Trump, believe that Palestinians don't deserve to live. It's true. I tell them, prove me wrong. But one thing you should realize, the fact that they don't think Palestinians deserve to live, to me also translates, and it's true. They also, again, think that black and brown lives are disposable. That's right. Think about black maternal health crisis. The fact that 3 to 4 times more black women die giving birth, becoming mothers, young women. They rather have a commission and do another study on it than actually go in there and fix the racist system that is literally allowing so many of our mothers and children to then become motherless. The stories that come out of them not feeling believed when they're in pain and all of that within our healthcare system. To me, again, a Detroiter Philistinia, am not surprised that they don't think Palestinians deserve to live because they don't think my black neighbors deserve to live either. You know, what they fail to recognize is that many institutions, again, many of us have failed to recognize, is that many of the institutions in our country here were built not to protect us. They were actually built on this obsession with death, extraction, power, oppression, and pain. So we must create our own institutions. I loved going through the Black Panther Museum here in Oakland. And I kid you not, there was like 70 to 90 programs that they were doing their own. They're like, oh, if you're not going to feed our kids, we're not going to have free, because there was no free lunch program back then. We're going to feed our kids because we know our kids can't learn if they're hungry. Just like I'm fighting to say our kids can't learn and thrive if they're drinking dirty water, not only with lead, but 11 other contaminants. Look at where there's no clean drinking water. We all are witnessing, though, a historic moment in our country where I am so incredibly proud that we are connecting movements together. In Palestine, my beloved Palestine is bringing the movements together. Alhamdulillah, I have never seen anything like it where people are connecting. Again, with the oppression and the policies here at home, and how, wow, you always have money there to go bomb and kill people, but you don't have money to take care of our families here at home. And boy, oh boy, does that irk many of my colleagues, because it's true. I've never seen this much bipartisan support. And what is it for? Is it for health care? Is it for literally ending hunger among children? It's for genocide. From Detroit to Gaza, from the Bay Area to Sudan, people in this room know that when we say free Palestine, we are also saying water is a human right. We also saying health care for all, no more wars, end mass incarceration, abolish ICE, housing for all, and so much more. We must continue to demand an arms embargo, a complete arms embargo for all weapons to the Israeli government, no matter what they label it, ya jama'ah, offensive or defensive. It doesn't matter. Either you want to end the genocide and the funding of it or not. You can't claim that I'm a sponsor of Block the Bombs Act, yet you vote for more funding to the same country that is committing the genocide. You can't sign letters, literally letters expressing concern over forced starvation, while enabling the same Israeli government committing the war crime of using food as a weapon of war. You can't boycott Netanyahu's speech, yet meet with him later, take a picture, and even spread racist rhetoric and lies of that same government we know is all rooted, again, in anti-Palestinian racism and Islamophobia. You can't sign letters supporting Palestinian statehood, yet fund the same government that doesn't support it and goes out of their way to violate international laws to make it impossible. You know, they come up to me and say, what do you think, Rashida, of the plan, the peace plan? As a Palestinian, I've heard it all. I said, well, why do we need a plan? What do you mean? I said, if you want peace, let's force enforcement of international laws. If you want peace, why do you have to have a separate plan to follow international laws? Follow international laws, oppose war crimes, oppose genocide. We're on these treaties, and yet we're not even going to go ahead and support it unless it's in some sort of disgusting, weird, like reason of power and holding on to oil or whatever the heck they're doing. May it be Congo or whoever. So the idea that you're progressive, but for Palestine, needs to stop. Weapons are weapons. Genocide is genocide, no matter how much you want to avoid the word. I mean, the elected officials of Israel are using the language of ethnic cleansing and genocide. It's past time that my colleagues stop making excuses and listen to the majority of Americans in their district who are demanding an end to the funding. Colleagues will tweet to express concern, but don't use the power of their vote to really express real opposition. I read a quote from Omar al-Akkad, and many of you saw this, but it really resonated with me. He said, quote, one day when it's safe, when there's no personal downside to calling a thing what it is, when it's too late to hold anyone accountable, everyone will have always been against it. I'm not going to forget, though. I watch them not only censure me, but go after students, go after institutions. They still are. There will be a reckoning for these monstrous crimes, and the excuses of war criminals and genocidal funders and their cheerleaders will not save them from justice. I still remember a New York Democrat yell out in caucus, in the Democratic caucus is a meeting of Democrats. He yelled out, they're all guilty. So I'm tired of the crumbs. Many of you have seen this shift in me. Or I'm tired of the excuses. I thought maybe 6 months. Maybe, okay, is this enough? The images of the NICU, is that enough? The starving children, is that enough? There's nothing controversial in saying we want Palestinians to live, that we want black mothers to live, that we want Sudan to be free, that we want corporations to stop extracting and causing so much pain. We want free health care. We want clean water. And for the love of Allah, we want our immigrant neighbors to be left alone. I believe this in my heart. Palestine, Philistine, and countless places around the world before and after have been testing grounds for a disgusting alliance of American politicians and capitalists to innovate literally new ways to starve people, to torture people, and to kill people who demand their rights. And those tests are now echoing all across our country right now. We're seeing an unprecedented resistance, though, my brothers and sisters. Organically, people are taken out to the streets to protect our communities, our neighborhoods. I'm so incredibly inspired every video I see of ordinary people putting themselves in line to protect others. ICE Watch, mutual aid organizations are springing up all across the country. Workers are unionizing and winning. In Michigan, our healthcare workers just unionized, and they're so incredibly inspiring. There's a revolutionary energy, and it's our duty as Muslimin to cultivate this power right now, to force, again, all of us to stand up and fight against fascism and win. That's why CAIR is so important. I said it before, I'm going to say it again. Litigation is resistance. It wasn't congressional law or law that passed Congress. It was Brown versus Education that desegregated. Think about that. Neighbors, again, across the country are asking all of us to stand up and do more. Now, people try to attack me for being a democratic socialist all the time. I smile because I like to let them see that it was the UAW that got me my straight teeth, even being the eldest of 14. But I say to them when they come after me for being a democratic socialist, so what? You want to attack me because I won't allow my neighbor to go hungry? I won't allow my neighbor to go without access to water, which is life? Go ahead. But I know this. You don't have to be a democratic socialist to have been inspired by the primary win of our brothers Ahran Mamdani in New York. What is incredible is we are standing at a crossroads in American history. We are going to take this country back for our working families and defeat these pathetic, cowardly, hateful fascists, these genocide enablers. We're going to win because we don't have any other option, ya Jama'ah. We don't. We are going to free Palestine, free Sudan, free Yemen, for our neighbors here at home. We're going to free them from oppression. We're going to make sure, again, that we grow this movement. I always say to people, and I've said it to you all, they don't have a choice. We're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're just actually getting started. I leave you with this. The only time ever in the history of my yama yelling at me all the time, getting arrested for one fair wage, Manash Mashak, El Habasu Ukhtik, all this stuff that my whole family gets, it's literally, Yama's crying, she thinks you're in jail, why are you causing trouble? And even though I'm at this age, she still says it. But the first time, Linda, she didn't say it. I'll leave you with this. As I had to tell her that Netanyahu was coming to Congress and address Congress. I had to because I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I also didn't want her to be scared. And I knew that somehow she was going to find out within an hour into it. So I said, Yamma, Ismail, he's come. She goes, why? Why is he coming? She was in shock. I said, Yamma, Democrats and Republicans signed a letter inviting him to address Congress. Instead of her saying, Benesh Mashakil, Khalila Allah, that's another one, brother. She's like, Khalila Allah, Allah will take care of it. You know what she said to me? She goes, "Shu بدك تلبسي? What are you going to wear?" And I said, "I don't know, Yamma." So she gets me the most, I couldn't wear it, but it was those thobes with the Palestinian flag in the front and Palestinian flag. You know which ones I'm talking about. But I wore the belt. I wore my earrings. I went in there. And it was the first time afterwards I said, "Did you see me, Yamma?" She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "I'm proud of you, Yamma." She didn't say Banash Mashakil. She didn't say Khalas, Khalila Allah. She understands we have no choice. We have to completely be unapologetically ourselves and speaking up and being visible, even when we're shaking. And I was shaking. But alhamdulillah, again, what I'm seeing across the country is people, again, that inspire me all the time. And I say to them, why? Because I saw children with no legs. I saw a starving baby. The fact that our Congress doesn't see the shared humanity and is forgetting our humanity, it chips at my soul. But alhamdulillah, American people across the country are rising up and saying, "Not on our watch." Alhamdulillah. With that, thank you. And please continue to support institutions like this. This is how we fight back. We have to have our own institutions. Congress will not free us. The President of the United States will not free us. No party establishment will free us. We are the only ones that will free us. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.